Welcome to Successful Dropout. This community is for the outliers, the innovators, the rebels, those who dare to defy the status quo, step off the conveyor belt, and claim the best version of their life. I'm your host, Kylon Gienger. Welcome to the movement that is Successful Dropout. What is up, Successful Dropouts? Get stoked because today on the show we have myself. It's just me. Tay is gone. She's in town visiting a couple of our businesses to sort of check in with those. And I'm here alone, just working from home today, and decided to record a little something for you guys. I get a lot of emails from listeners of the show, and I absolutely love it. I love hearing from you guys and responding to you guys. I always respond. And so first of all, I just want you to know that if you ever want to reach out to me, Kylon at successfuldropout.com, or in our Facebook group, Facebook/groups/Successful Dropouts, get a hold of me somehow, and I absolutely love to hear from you. I love to hear your thoughts, your questions, your observations, your praises. I'm just kidding. And I love to respond, and I always try to. I don't always get around to it the day of. Sometimes it takes me a few days because I have a lot going on, but I do always get around to it. Anyways, I got an email recently from a listener of the show, and I won't say her name, obviously, because I definitely, and I want to make this clear right off the bat, I definitely want to be respectful to this individual, and I respect her, I respect her point of view, but I want to respond to it here on the podcast because I feel like maybe it's something some of you have been thinking about. If not, It's something that I've definitely been thinking about, at least since she brought it up, and also something worth talking about, I think, even though it's a little bit controversial. But I just want to be very clear about that right off the bat. I really try to be, I don't try, I am very respectful of other people's views, and I try to let them know that I respect them as well, and I'm honestly very grateful that there are different views about everything, about politics, about religion, about business. I think all of these different perspectives and points of view, if we can come together and talk about them, we'll just end up being better as a society, better as individuals as well. It's growing up, I remember my parents always used to make us play, and by us I mean my siblings and I. They used to make us play something called, this is going to sound really stupid, but they used to make us play something called the listening game. And essentially it was anytime we disagreed with a sibling on something. And back then when we were young, it was something as simple as, like, I don't know, who would get the last piece of candy or something like that. But anytime we would disagree with a sibling and get into some sort of fight or argument, we were made to play the listening game. And the listening game was where one of us got to say something. We got to say our piece. We got to express how frustrated we were and what we believed and our side of the story. And the other sibling had to sit there patiently and listen. And after they sat there patiently and listened, they had to repeat back what the other sibling had said before they could then respond. So if I disagreed with my sister on something, for instance, I would tell her, I disagree with you for all these reasons, blah, 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 blah. And then she would be required to sit there and listen patiently. And then after I was done, she would repeat back to me what I had just said. And this was important because it helped both her and I realize that she had heard me. Okay. Because she had to just repeat back what I said. So she heard me and she understood me. Then she was allowed to say her piece. And that was the way it went, just back and forth until we got it resolved. And I'll tell you, I don't know if anybody out there listening has kids. I don't yet. Eventually we will. This was a really helpful tool for resolving conflicts between like myself and my siblings. And I noticed it's still a very helpful tool for resolving conflicts in just anywhere else in the world, especially when it comes to some of these hot topics like politics or religion, to play this listening game. But, and you don't get to do that with strangers. I think that would be a little weird, but you can take the concept where if somebody has a differing opinion, you can still listen to them. You can still repeat back, not like a drone, don't be an idiot, but you can still let them know that you understand what they have said before then you say what you mean to say. Anyway, so this is something that I try to practice with my differing political views with a lot of people, like on my Facebook feed, or different religious views with a lot of my friends and stuff, because it's really important to have that dialogue. And I love debate. I love, to a certain extent, I love even conflict, and I love it when two people have differing ideas. For like entertainment, while I make, an hour and a half commute to one of our businesses, I'll listen to just debates on YouTube on any subject you can imagine. I just love the debate factor. I just think it's so important and so core to our becoming better as a society. So all of that to preface, okay? I got this email from a gal, and she brought up some points about this podcast, and these are going to be, pretty controversial, but I would love to just take the opportunity to share my thoughts about this with all of you. So I'm just going to read it. She said, "Hey, Kylon, I just started listening to your podcast. I think I got through 5 episodes in one day, which is pretty impressive. That's like 5 hours plus." And she said, "But I started to notice a lot of people talking with you were male and white, followed then by Asian males and white females, with just a few talkers from other ethnicities. I'm not sure if I'm asking you a question or trying to open a discussion, but the subject of white male privilege comes to mind. And maybe you touch on this in an episode and I didn't get to it yet, but I think it would be an interesting subject to approach." Well, we're definitely approaching it now. Here we go. Next sentence, she says, "It will be awkward, and I don't think people will enjoy hearing this side of the truth. But yes, of course, successful dropouts are predominantly white males because they are the most privileged to be able to drop out and still be successful. The system is in their favor." And then she goes on to say, "I could snowball into a fully blown thesis about this, but I'll keep it short for now. I'd love to know your thoughts on the subject and hear a podcast with someone from an ethnic minority and or low income background, even better if they're also female, who has really made it." And then she says, "I guess maybe they wouldn't be a dropout if they never had the chance to choose to drop out, ... Just some food for thought." And then she signs off. So, yeah, I did, to be fair, I did warn you guys this was going to be a controversial subject, okay? I know, God, I know that the majority of you listening out there, you're 16 to 25 years old, you're a high school or a college student, that's primarily who listens to this show, so I know you more than likely already have an opinion on this, okay? So, just bear with me here, okay? I responded to her, and I want to read my response and expound upon it as I read it, and I just want to share my thoughts on this, because I definitely hear where she's coming from. I mean, she's a lot of what she's stating are facts. Like if you look back on the people I've interviewed, Yeah, I think that the majority of them are predominantly white and male, followed by Asian males and white females, right? So she's not wrong. But I just want to read my response and sort of riff on this for a while. So bear with me. And this is kind of what this whole episode is about. So here is my response. Hey, blank, because I don't want to use her name. Thank you for reaching out and glad you discovered the podcast. Smiley face. I always like to put a few smiley faces in there so people know I'm generally in a good mood when I'm writing them back. I'm certainly happy to have a discussion about this particular topic or just answer your thoughts to the best of my ability. I don't have the kind of time to type it out via email, which is funny because this is actually a really long email. And especially with topics like this, I prefer to have a one-on-one conversation. If you'd like to chat in full about it sometime, blah, 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 I throw out my Skype and my email and my phone number. Because that is something, well, I don't know, if you've ever been in a debate with me or, I don't know, any sort of heated conversation, I'm not afraid to keep it going. I just don't always have the time to do it on social media or at that particular moment in time via email or whatever. I'd much rather schedule a time and we can continue to chat about it. And then I go on to say, but in short, which again, this is not short at all. But when I was starting the email, I felt like it was going to be short, but it kind of got away from me. To be honest, I haven't actively, regularly pursued the guests who come on the show for over a year now. The majority of guests find me or are introduced to me. That to say, we don't have any sort of quote-unquote affirmative action policy for who comes on the show. I simply accept or turn away potential guests based on their accomplishments, stories, ability to provide value, etc. If you know anyone who would be a good fit for the show, I would love an intro. Smiley face again. I'm a very happy guy. If you're asking my opinion on the subject of white male privilege, I don't really, and I just want to say something to that last point. It's true. Like I don't. Yeah, I'm not thinking, guys. I'm not thinking about the ethnicity of the guests that come on the show. I'm not surfing Google looking for Asian and Indian and black dropouts. I'm just not. I think that's stupid. I'm for one, I don't have the time to do that, and two, I don't need to do that because people are coming to me for this show. I haven't had to find somebody in over a year. People are referred to me, and I don't know. Maybe I should. If you think I should, then shoot me an email and we can have a discussion about that. But I'm not. This isn't like a multi-million-dollar business with a huge public face. This is a it's a rapidly growing podcast and movement. I think it'll be worth maybe that financial amount someday. But for right now, this is just me still in my home office with my computer and my mic. Like I'm not thinking about if we're reaching certain quotas on certain ethnicities and certain people from certain backgrounds. I'm just not, and maybe I should. Maybe eventually I'll focus on that a little bit more. I certainly get really excited. I get more excited, say, for instance, when somebody introduces themselves to me. They say, hey, I would love to be on the show. This is kind of my background. And they came from like a really, really tough background, more so than a lot of the other guests that have come on. Like I get excited about that because I know there's a lot of you listening who are from, you started at not so much of an advantage as a lot of people did. And I think that's really admirable. And honestly, if you've listened to the show long enough, I think that you have more of a chance of finding some massive success if you have had a more of a rough start in your life than people who have had it a little easier. That's kind of just a fact. And so if you've had a more of a rough start in your life, you're actually in terms of achieving success, you're actually statistically at more of an advantage than somebody who, say, grew up in an environment where they sort of had everything handed to them. But again, I'm not actively trying to meet certain quotas and stuff like that. So I just want to expound on that paragraph a little bit. But I go on to say, if you're asking my opinion on the subject of white male privilege, I don't really know any hard data or statistics for or against it. I haven't looked into it much, and that's the truth. But I'm well aware of the narrative. The reason I haven't looked into it much is because, frankly, I think it's a pointless and almost toxic worldview to have in general. In short, the reason for this is because there is generally a lack of a solution presented after people state that there is quote-unquote white privilege or quote-unquote institutional racism or some sort of system that is oppressing certain people. But much more importantly, I believe it's a self-defeating mindset that in the end helps no one. Again, happy to dive into this more and explain when we chat, blah, blah, blah. And I will say I am open to having my mind changed about this, but I haven't yet encountered a compelling enough reason. Boy, breaking this down. So, look, like, I'm not an idiot. Like, I understand the whole narrative around things like white privilege and institutional racism and where those sit in the current, news cycle and the current, social economic climate. I just, if we're talking about this in the context of any individual achieving what they, their subjective view of success in life, I just think focusing on topics like institutional racism or white privilege and other topics surrounding that, I honest to God believe it's completely pointless. And again, like, I'm open to having my mind changed about it. I really am. But right now, my current belief is that it's absolutely pointless. Why does it help to think, if you would consider yourself a minority, why does it help to think that there is some sort of oppressive regime, some sort of oppressive aura out there just in the ether, holding you down and keeping you from achieving your dreams? Like, why is it helpful to believe that? And now I'm playing devil's advocate with myself. I guess some would say, well, because if you just choose to, because there actually is a real problem, and if you choose to ignore it, it's just going to persist. And so it's helpful to believe that so we can eradicate, whatever problem there is. But my counterpoint to that, I'm like debating with myself. My counterpoint to that would be that the majority of the time I have heard somebody scream that there's institutional racism in America, specifically, in the U.S. specifically. They neglect to point out what exactly is racist or what exactly is oppressing them or holding them back. There's very few instances where I've seen somebody say that there is something like white privilege or institutional racism and pinpoint to exactly what it is. It's always just sort of out there, like, oh, I'm being oppressed. There's this institutional racism out there somewhere in the ether, and it's holding me back, it's holding us back, it's holding my community back. I hate racists. I hate racism just as much as any decent human being. I want to fight racism, but if you're always saying that there's just this vague, like, institutional racism out there, or these instances of racism, I don't know what to, like, go and fight. Tell me something specific. Show me, like, the law or the person that is actually racist in its intent, in its genesis, and I would be happy to stand alongside you and fight it. I think anybody, any decent human being would, but too many times I just hear it kind of thrown out there in general, it would just in a really general sense that it's just sort of out there, and people focus so much on it. And I don't think it's helpful. Why would it, if you are if you want to achieve anything in your life, if you want to level up in any sense of the word, why would you put so much focus and attention on something you can't even really define that's holding you down, that's like oppressing you? Or why would you choose to foster and really build up a belief in your mind that a certain group in society is a lot more privileged than you are? Like, how is that helpful? Even if it might be true, even if it might be factually true, how is that remotely helpful to yourself? I mean, I just think of Viktor Frankl, the Nazi prisoner of war who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. Okay, this guy lived through hell, literally. Please get the book, read it. It's a really short read, and it'll change your life. This guy was the father of a lot of concepts in psychology and mental and human development, success, and stuff like that. But the guy lost his whole family due to in World War II in Nazi concentration camps. He was a prisoner for a long time. But he came to these really key realizations, which is that, even in the worst of circumstances, he was still able to find meaning and to find purpose in all of the suffering he endured. So my point is, this guy has every reason to be really angry at the world, to be really angry at specific groups of people and things that happened in society. And at the end of the day, he just decided it's not helpful. None of that is going to help him become a better person, become successful, to level up in any way, even though it might be true. Like, he was literally in a Nazi concentration camp. These things are factually true and actually happened to him, and he has, the physical and mental scars to prove it. But again, chooses not to focus on it or put any sort of give it any sort of weight in his life, because at the end of the day, it is just not helpful. It does not help you level up in any way. So all that to say, I don't understand the focus on it to begin with. If you're a successful dropout listening to this right now and you're really concerned about these things, I would urge you to just stop. I don't care if it's factually true or not. I mean, we can certainly have that discussion. I know there's a lot of injustice out there. But it's just not helpful, and you really have to cut that mindset out. So, okay, moving on. I'm getting away from myself here. So let's see. There was that paragraph. So like I said, I said, again, happy to dive into this more. Explain, we can chat. And I will say I'm open to having my mind changed about this, but I haven't yet encountered a compelling enough reason to believe these things. And then the next paragraph I say, in regards to your statements that you believe the majority of successful dropouts are white because they are privileged enough to drop out, I assume you mean that maybe they have a bigger safety net, more supportive family, more money, an easier time navigating the systems, quote unquote, etc. So then I go on to say, well, that may be true of some of the guests on my show. You should try reframing your view to notice that most of my guests have been successful because of factors other than their skin color. And that maybe... my screen just went blank. There we go. And that maybe you will find an even greater correlation between their success and other factors like persistence, grit, positive thinking, taking massive action, pursuing fear, questioning the status quo, building a network, finding mentors, continual learning, etc. Let's not forget that by definition, dropping out of school puts you at a disadvantage if you're still trying to play by the rules of quote unquote the system, and can certainly cut ties with family, friends, and other support systems. So I guess this is to point out, she had said that basically, she'd said that basically it's a privilege to drop out of school, and that this privilege only belonged to like white, straight males because they might come from better backgrounds and have more of a safety net. And while that may be true of some, sure, that may be true of some, what I have suggested to her is that that's still the minority, and that she should try reframing her view to notice that the majority of people that have come on the show, and the majority of you guys, the successful dropouts, the members of the successful dropout community, you have been and you are being successful because of factors other than your background, your skin color, what sort of safety net you have to fall back on, your family, your culture, your neighborhood. I don't think that those are, and I've interviewed a lot of people and I've been doing this for, quite some time now. I don't think that has nearly as much of an impact as factors like what I mentioned, like persistence, like grit, like positive thinking, taking massive action, pursuing fear, questioning the status quo, building a network, finding mentors, continual learning, never giving up. These are things that they don't care about. These are concepts that don't care about your background. They don't care about your ethnicity, your race, how much money you have, how much money your family has. They don't care at all. And in fact, like I said before, the more disadvantaged you are, the more dissatisfied you are, and the more motivated you typically are to get out of your current situation and make something of yourself. Some of the most successful people in the world are the ones that started from the most humble beginnings, and that's just factually true. Like statistically, you're more likely to be massively successful if you come from a really crappy background. And so I just want to, I hope I'm clear about that. Next paragraph, I said, in fact, several, and then in parentheses, honestly, most of the ethnic, quote unquote, ethnic minority individuals I've had on the show come from backgrounds and families that were better off than most, including one who is in fact a woman. And I don't remember exactly who I'm referring to here, but I'm sure if you go through the guest list, you can find them. But it's true, a lot, like most of the individuals I've had on the show that you would consider an ethnic minority, at least according to this gal's who emailed me her standards, they've come from really good families. And so, I love to debate, and so this was really just me looking for opportunities to say like, hey, your cookie cutter worldview doesn't work here necessarily. It doesn't work all across the board here. And a lot of these individuals too, they are this way because they're immigrants. I've had several like first or second generation immigrants on the show, and they do really, really well because they start from such desperate or humble beginnings. Again, it's like my point that I made earlier. So that's just interesting. But to continue here, I said, whereas I have many white individuals on the show who had nothing. And then I talk about Dallas Swain. Dallas, if you're listening, shout out to you, man. I said, Dallas Swain, for example, high school dropout, kicked out of his home, ran miles between... I hate this screensaver. Dallas Swain, high school dropout, kicked out of his home, ran miles between working two jobs due to no transportation. I mean, like literally running miles between two different jobs in a given day due to not having any transportation. I didn't even mention this, but like, oh yeah, I did. Kicked out of his home. His parents kicked him out of his home. He's now earning six figures in the oil and gas industry, working blue collar jobs. He's kicking ass. And then I go on to say, you will also find a percentage or a large percentage in the successful dropout community and in the Facebook group who are in this quote unquote ethnic minority category, to use her words. But truth be told, I have no desire to break down my guests slash community into categories based on race or where they started from. In fact, I really didn't enjoy typing the last couple sentences. I forgot I said that. Yeah, well, because guys, I hate this idea of like feeling like I would have to categorize all of you guys between like minorities and non-minorities, or where you started from, or where you didn't start from, or what kind of a safety net you have, or like that's just it's so polarizing, it's so divisive. I hate the idea, and that's kind of what she was suggesting I do in order to sort of keep a straight quota of the different types of people I have on the show and stuff. And I don't know. Again, if you think I should, I want to hear from you guys for sure. But right now, I don't like that idea. I really don't. And then I go on to explain why. I say why because at Successful Dropout, that couldn't take us further away from what we are about and what actually matters. And that is your personal ability to achieve whatever you conjure in your mind, regardless of circumstances, skin color, background, ... you name it. Whew. Spitting fire. Past Kylon. Nice job. No, it's true. Like, I believe that wholeheartedly. I don't know what else to say about that. Because at Successful Dropout, that couldn't take us further away from what we are about and what actually matters. And that is your personal ability to achieve whatever you conjure in your mind, regardless of circumstances, skin color, background, you name it. I just had to read that again. Then the next paragraph, I say, in general, it seems as though you are viewing success through the lens of race, background, access to opportunity, family safety net, etc. Respectfully, a reason I built Successful Dropout was to combat worldviews exactly like the one you seem to have. This is because these are all factors people can't change. That's important. These are all factors people can't change. Your race, your background, your family safety net, your neighborhood, your culture, where you were born. What good will it do if I start telling my community that their success depends on these factors outside of their control? None whatsoever. And then I go on to say, it's the way that the world works. Some are born into better situations than others. Some are born into worse situations than others. Luckily, that is neither an accurate indicator nor a recipe for success. Success is 100% a choice, and something that more often happens when you start believing you can achieve anything, regardless of your circumstances. And listen to Successful Dropout. You got to have the technical knowledge. I just had to plug this show in there. I forgot I wrote that. Success is 100% a choice, and something that more often happens when you start believing you can achieve anything regardless of your circumstance, and when you listen to Successful Dropout. Oh, jeez. And then I say, so this got away from me, and I've been typing longer than I should, blah, 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 and I kind of sign off. Yeah, to that last point, again, what frustrated me is that she seemed to have framed success, and she seemed to have framed any given individual's potential for success as based on factors outside of their control. That, she seemed to think that, and when I say, she, I'm obviously speaking to a broader group of people here, because I know a lot of people, specifically a lot of college students, believe the same way that she does. And I guess I'm trying to debate against that somehow, because of factors that are outside of your control, like your race, your skin color, your background, where you grew up, your culture, how wealthy or poor your family is, that those factors are what determine your ability to achieve success. That's kind of how she's framing it. That's what she believes, and I know a lot of people believe that. And honestly, Like I said earlier, one of the reasons I started Successful Dropout is to combat that, because I mean, when you're a college dropout, like I said again earlier, you're already at a disadvantage. Like, you could already technically count yourself as part of this like a disadvantaged group if you're a college dropout. A lot of people do. And I started Successful Dropout to teach people that it does not matter at all. It doesn't matter at all where you came from, what your background is, what skin color you are, especially when it comes to these factors that you can't control, like, at all. They're completely out of your control. You're born into this world a certain way, and that's just the way the world is. So what are you going to do about it? And you have all the free, especially if you live in America. And I know I have listeners in like a bunch of other countries, especially there's a lot of you guys from India. Shout out to India, by the way. I've never been there, but I'd love to go. But especially in America, what we have is incredibly special, and there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of mobility between the 1% and the 99%. I mean, between the really successful people, the middle class, and I don't know what the technical term is, lower class, lower income. Anyway, there's tremendous mobility in between these groups. You have, like, the people that are in the 1% don't stay there for forever. They're up and down and up and down. People that are, middle class or God, I don't know if lower class is the right word, or just poorer than the middle class, they don't stay there forever either. There is tremendous mobility and potential for mobility in between these different groups in the United States. There really is a lot of opportunity, and your success does not depend on these factors that are outside of your control. Your success does not depend on these vague forces that are out there in the ether oppressing you and holding you down. I mean, look, guys, like, we can all find ways to be victims. We can all find ways to be oppressed. Like, some people are born too tall or too short or too skinny or too big or too some people are born smart. Some people are born not as smart. Maybe I'm one of those. So, like, we're born with all sorts of different advantages and disadvantages. We all go through really tough times. We can all find some way we're a victim. We can all find something, we can all point to something in our lives that's oppressing us at the moment. And of course, there are some things that are oppressing other people harder than some others, but, like, again, that's just the way the world is. Like, some people are born more advantaged than others. Some people are born more disadvantaged than others. It's not those are circumstances you can't change, but what you can change is, again, these qualities of persistence, of positive thinking, pursuing fear, grit, taking massive action, questioning the status quo, building a network, becoming a part of a community like this, finding mentors, continual learning, constantly affirming yourself, setting goals. These are things that factor into success. These are the things that decide your success, not your background or your skin color or anything else like that. And so, yeah, I guess that's where I would leave it. I just really want Successful Dropout to be a safe haven from all of those things, from all those types of beliefs. I want it to be a place that people can come, and no matter what they've been through, who they are, where they grew up, that they know they can be a part of a community where they have a chance to succeed with everybody else, and to get support from this community, and to ask questions, and to share failures that we learn from, and to share successes, the exciting parts of our lives. That's what I want Successful Dropout to be. And the way that this gal was approaching it in her email, it's really the exact opposite of what I want Successful Dropout to be. And the way that, honestly, there are a lot of colleges out there in the United States are approaching, this mentality, it's just I don't know how else to put it. Like, it's just the opposite of what I want for Successful Dropout. And it wasn't the original reason, but it's become a big, driving factor and reason in why I want to continue, why we will continue pushing this thing forward, making this a movement to be reckoned with. Successful Dropout is because there needs to be a place in this world for people to gather who believe that despite whatever circumstances they happen to be in, they can succeed, and that success is their duty, and that it can happen, and it's completely within their control. I can't imagine anything worse than telling a minority student from a poor background, from a poor neighborhood, that he is oppressed, that he's a victim, that somehow he's a victim of society, and there's this unspecified racism and system of oppression that is holding him back. I can't imagine anything more cruel, because it's just not true. Why would you tell somebody that? Even if it's factually true, even if you can point to instances where that is factually true, why would you tell somebody that? And why would you tell them that they can't succeed to various degrees because of these different supposed, systems of oppression and racism, what have you? Why would you ever tell somebody that? Even if they do exist, why wouldn't you tell them that they can succeed despite whatever their circumstances are, despite any adversity that's put in their way? I don't understand. I don't understand what the appeal is of being a victim, or of feeling like you're oppressed, or telling other people that they're victims or oppressed. I don't understand why it's virtuous to be a victim or oppressed, like it seems to be on a lot of college campuses. Even if you have good reasons as to why you're a victim or oppressed. Like, again, I go back to this guy, Viktor Frankl, who he had every reason to believe he was oppressed and a victim. Like, he was in a freaking Nazi concentration camp. He lost his entire family. He legit this guy had reasons to complain about being oppressed and being a victim. Okay, if anybody did, it was this guy. And he decided that this factual, empirical oppression and victimization that he was going through was that he wasn't going to focus on it, that it was not going to be a deciding factor in whether he lived or died, whether he was happy or sad, whether he was successful or not successful. He decided it just didn't count. He wasn't going to count it or believe in it. And he went on to be the father of a lot of some huge sort of breakthroughs in psychology, and be a famous author and write this book. And again, it's the opposite of a topic we've talked about a lot on the show, which is not making excuses and taking extreme ownership, and realizing that despite your circumstances, you have a duty to succeed, and you are still able to succeed through factors that you for sure can control. And the Successful Dropout community is only meant to help you with that, to be a place where you can come and meet and engage with like-minded individuals who are thinking outside of the box, who are stepping off the conveyor belt and claiming a self-directed life and becoming the best versions of themselves. And so, anyways, with that, guys, I'm going to sign off. I really hope, honest to God, I really hope I haven't been insensitive here. I really hope that you can attempt to understand my point of view, and I understand this gal's point of view as well. Like, I do. I understand where she's coming from, and I have debated. If you've been friends with me for a long time, and if you've been friends with me on Facebook, like, I actively engage in a lot of political debates. And so I talk with people about this stuff all the time. I definitely have a point of view, which I think I've covered pretty well and shared here. But I always attempt to understand other people's points of view. Anyways, if you think I'm wrong, shoot me an email. Let's open up a dialogue. Let's talk, or maybe even post something on the Facebook group, and let's do it out in the open where where everybody can engage. I'd be thrilled about that, honestly. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this if you have some. But those are my thoughts. Bottom line, I just love this community so much. I've poured my heart and soul into this. I'm going to continue to do that, and I'm so proud of all the engagement I'm seeing on the Facebook group. And I'm so proud of the way our new website and platform is coming along. I think it's going to be a really cool place to hang out, our own little corner of the internet here soon. And I'm really just proud of all of you guys and this entire community. You guys are the real MVPs. You are the successful dropouts, and I'm incredibly grateful for you all. Stay hungry, stay foolish.